someone I wanna recognize. The future starts right now.
Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of the Try and Stop Me podcast. If you are new here, my name is Colleen, but like always, you can call me Col. Every single Monday, we have a brand new episode talking about motivation, challenging topics, really talking with our guests or through some solo time about how to keep going in life, what motivates them, what inspires them, really to shake you up, help you grow outside of your comfort zone so that you can go out there and go after the dreams that you've always been thinking about going after. This week, I'm super excited to have Lester Morales on the show with us. He is an incredible human being. He is the CEO and founder of Next Impact. Forbes has written articles about this man, and he has the success stories, the stories on personal side. Lester, I want to dive all into this, but first of all, I have to say thank you so much for taking the time to come on the show with us today.
My pleasure. My pleasure. Absolutely.
So Lester is a man that travels all around the United States. Now, you live in Puerto Rico at the current moment, but right now you are in Dallas, and we were just touching on what a different world it is in Dallas compared to New York City and Puerto Rico with our strict rules. So it's interesting to hear. But so I want to talk, Lester, all about kind of what got you to this point. Because like I said, Forbes wrote an article on Lester talking about how you made this 7-figure business in healthcare. You are shaking up the industry, which we know is super impactful because we are in this industry, but not many people are in it. So to get to the level of success that you're at, it takes challenging times pushing through those. It takes kind of calling yourself out on your own nonsense. It takes a lot of dedication, a lot of heart. So I know all about your story, but let's dive into it so that the listeners can fall in love with you a little bit so that they can understand back your history. So tell me about where you grew up a little bit and your parents and their driving force behind your success, really.
Yeah. So, life started on the island. So I was born in Puerto Rico. My parents moved us to the States at age 3. So I would say my parents were chasing the, quote unquote, American dream back then. And I don't want to give away my age a little bit, but, in the 80s, they were running commercials on TV that would say, hey, you want to double your pay? Take a one-way ticket on Eastern Airlines, if you can remember that, to Orlando, and you'll double your pay. So my parents packed us up with my aunt and uncle, and we moved to the States. And, I always say I grew up in a very normal middle class, but with, I don't know if you're technically considered an immigrant if you come from a U.S. territory into the U.S., but I think I have very immigrant, mentality in regards to it's all about hustle. So, my parents both worked several jobs. My mom was a nurse at the VA hospital, and she would work day and nights. She would pick up weekend shift. My dad always had multiple jobs. And that was something that they always instilled in us was, you don't have to be the smartest, definitely not the best looking, whatever it is, but you can control one thing, and that's the hustle. And so that's what I always saw growing up was, we might have not have sat around the dinner table every night at 6 o'clock because you had parents working multiple jobs, kids playing sports or, doing karate or, whatever it might have been. But our family was all about show me, whether that was, don't talk to me about something, do it. And the hustle around life and that you can control that one thing.
That sounds powerful. And it sounds like the love was behind how much hard work they had showing you to be able to then, create your life. And I'm sure it came out in sports and I'm sure it came out in the career in your college industry. So then with your parents, what even led you into insurance? How did you, because insurance is a boring ass industry. Let's be real. It's not something we all wake up and say, I want to do this for the rest of my life.
Yeah. So, I've got a story behind it, right? It's funny. I was telling the story a little bit of it this morning on a call. But my dad was diagnosed with multiple myeloma when I was 15. So multiple myeloma is cancer of your bone marrow. For a Latin boy we're typically all mama's boys, but your dad is like Optimus Prime. It's like the most untouchable. You never saw the man cry. You don't really express love, like love, but he videotaped every single one of my baseball games. He taught me how to fight. He taught me how to shave. He taught me how to be a man, drive, all those things. So to see my dad go through that, so bone marrow transplants, chemo, radiation, and again, my parents both had jobs, both had medical insurance, but my dad's drug, single drug, the one drug he was on his whole life until his last breath, was a drug called Revlimid. And now doing what we do, Colleen, I know this drug's $150,000 a year. And so my parents would hit our out-of-pocket max in our insurance every year. Well, when you're a middle-class family making, less than $90,000 of household income, and you're still trying to send, your kids to baseball camps and put Jordans and Z Cavaricis on them, how much money extra do you have to pay for these unforeseen bills? So when I was 17, my parents filed bankruptcy. And, it's funny, to this day, I don't even really know that I understood the magnitude of what they were going through, because I never worried about the roof over my head. I always had a meal. Yeah, my sophomore and junior year of high school, my parents were never home. My dad was in the hospital, and my mom would go from working at a hospital to staying next to him in the hospital. And so I kind of you kind of had to grow up fairly quickly. But I never really understood that word bankruptcy, because again, I still got to go to sports. I went to my, homecoming and prom, and my parents were always there. And so when I went to college, I went to Florida State, and Florida State actually has a risk management insurance program. And so, yes, super sounds dorky, but
little bit.
I was in an accounting major, and I realized very quickly I was not going to be smart enough to actually do that. So I was like, man, this is hard. It sucks. Not really my cup of tea. And one of my fraternity brothers had graduated with a risk management degree, and he got a job in Manhattan from Florida, making 80 grand out of school automatically. I'm like, wait a second, I've got a story to tell, right? I'm a product of employee benefits. I seen medical insurance. My parents were giving me money from my dad's disability policy. So I kind of had a story. Florida State has one of the best programs in the country for it, and you can make some money. You know what? Seems like an okay deal. And so that's how it happened. I actually have my degree in this dorky industry we call insurance.
That you started in college. But here's my question for you. Back in college, did you really understand your story and your why? Because that comes
No.
into a lot of things. We all preach, follow your why, but some people sit out there and they're like, I don't have one. What's my why?
I have zero idea. Actually, and you and I talked about this in our opening. It wasn't until I hired a business coach and was actually sharing this story, and he's like, how come you don't ever bring that conversation in as part of business? And I never actually really even thought about it. So it's funny, I had been in the business 18 plus years before the first time I ever stood on stage and told the story that that I've got. And ever since that, the flip of the switch of what does drive, and really the ability to flip a scenario from what you're doing in that very moment to something way higher purposed and way higher motivation. And whether it's a crappy situation or being able to pull a context. I'm looking at a claim report earlier this morning, and being able to save somebody $5,000 on a surgery because we educated them that if they went from there to there to have the surgery, they could save $5,000. I now know what $5,000 means to somebody, because it could mean the difference between them filing bankruptcy. And so 67% of all people who file personal bankruptcy does because of health insurance reasons. So I never knew that whole why and the motivation and any of it really until the last 3 or 4 years. And it 100% makes a difference. 1 million% makes a difference.
Yeah, it ties in your heart behind not just making money. It ties in your purpose behind what continues. And it's so, and I know people roll their eyes at it, like what wakes you up in the morning. But really, when you don't want to get your ass out of bed at 5 a.m. to go do the things you have to do, understanding truthfully what the why is such a powerful thing, because that alarm clock and that snooze button is going to continue to go. And you have to be the one to put your foot in front of the next to keep going forward. So I think the why is super impactful, but it's also a journey to get there. Like you said, you were in the industry for how many years, and you didn't even blink and think about it, because you were running around being super successful, doing the hustle that you were probably brought up to do, like you said. So throughout those years before you hit your why, I know you went through some things. You had business ventures, you were super successful in the sales industry. And for folks out there that are really thinking about maybe opening their own thing, I know you've had a struggle between business partners in the past. So you were killing it in sales, you were saying, weren't you running like a $300 million sales team or something?
Yep.
And then you decide, what made you go, I could do this on my own?
Yeah, so it's interesting. So 2000, so I was in my own personal sales for 9 years and had done really well. So it's kind of like, check the box. I can figure out that I'm a good personal contributor. And people ask all the time, like, what made you so successful? Because, Colleen, I don't have to tell you, our business is an old white man business, right?
Male,
And
pale,
I was
stale.
I was a young Puerto Rican boy, right? I got into the brokerage business at age 24.
Mm-hmm.
People will ask, and I had a $3.5 million book by the time I was 30. And people would ask, what made you so successful? And it's interesting because, like, I kid you not, I say this and people always roll their eyes. Like, I'm not an intelligent guy. Like, I'm not a naturally like high IQ person. I'm pretty good street smarts. I'm a good reader person. I can talk to the wall, but I'll out hustle you. If you make 100 calls, I'll make 200. If we close the same percentage, I win because I made more calls. And,
Mm-hmm.
it's kind of one of those things. So, I decided, okay, check the box, personal production, did it. And then I became in leadership and ran a couple sales organizations. The most prominent, I was the chief growth officer for Willis in North America. And I had 200 salespeople that were on the team. We were a $350 million practice. And I could tell you the reason it kind of dawned on me was, all right, I figured out I was pretty good at that sales leadership thing. I'm a pretty good motivator. And I had some street cred, right? I'd done it myself. And so you can't really look at somebody who's done it themselves and be like, well, you don't understand what my day is like. No, I do understand what your day is. I did it. But for me, is really the notion of what I call Michael Jordan theory. Michael Jordan wasn't the best basketball player to ever walk the earth because of his own personal production. Michael Jordan was the best basketball player because he made everybody else around him that much better. And if you look at everybody's stats when he was on the court versus off the court, or when they went to another team, they were never the same as when they played with MJ. And so I kind of had a little bit of that arrogance and chip on the shoulder, and a little bit of, I was still a little bit naive. So I was 36. Our company was going through a merger, and I was like, man, big, slow company plus big, slow company doesn't equal fast. And if I don't do it now, I'm never going to do it. So I went from, seeing a very large paycheck deposited into my bank account every 2 weeks to making zero. I had no idea what I was going to do. I wouldn't say I'm a natural entrepreneur either. I'm a natural on the stage kind of, I love to talk a lot. Yeah, personality. But as far as like an operator of a business, I still, 5 years later, don't think I'm actually that good at it. And I'm a risk management professional by trade, right? So it took me a little bit of time to kind of do the whatever kind of calculation I needed to. I was still a little bit short of truly understanding the why, but I'll tell you, I left that job in 2015 to start my other my own thing, but in 2014, back to the mama's boy, my favorite person on this earth, or I guess not on this earth anymore. My mom got diagnosed with pancreatic cancer, and I remember, specific conversations with her about, you kind of never know. My mom was an exercise freak. She was a nurse. We would talk in the morning at 4:30 in the morning when I was on the way to the gym and she was on the way to the gym, and boom, all of a sudden, pancreatic cancer. And I don't have to tell anybody, don't ever Google pancreatic cancer because you won't like the Google search. And those things, I'm like, you know what? Tomorrow's not granted automatically. And if I don't do it, and I had already lost my dad, now my mom is sick. And my mom and I had a lot of conversations about regret and not regretting things. And so I knew that if I didn't bet on me, and that's the whole thing about entrepreneurship, is betting on you. I knew that I would have a regret. And, when you're seeing your favorite person in the world go through what she was going through, you're like, you know what? Everything else is easy. I mean, the worst that happens is I go get a job if I fail at this, but if I never give it a shot, I don't want to be sitting on my deathbed regretting that I didn't bet on me. And so that was the motivating factor.
It's so beautiful and full. And I'm sorry about your mom. I know about your mom, but so that has to be fearful too, because not only are you going through some personal devastating news and you're trying to keep your mom motivated and uplifted, you're now also entering into the entrepreneurial world, which had to be a hurricane in itself of ups and downs where you're like, I'm the man. And then what the hell am I doing? How did you actually combat through it? Because then you got into business with more people to then lead you to your success. But in that beginning stage of that fear, that's where most people are at right now. With COVID hit, they're working for other people and they're like, but I have this idea or I have this dream that I want to go do on my own, but I have bills to pay or people to take care of because they're counting on me right now. What kept you going there?
Yeah, I will say that I was I use the word blessed, right? At that time and still now, right? I don't have anybody that depends on me but me. So I did have that advantage, Colleen, about I didn't have little mouths to feed, to make that. And I had put myself both in a personal financial scenario and a worst case scenario that if I failed, I pick up the phone, I call any company and I get a job making, whatever I needed to make. Right. So I had a very, and that was obviously the cushion that I needed, because again, I'm not a natural entrepreneur. So, I wasn't the kid that had the lemonade stands that, I follow Gary Vee a lot, right? I wasn't the guy that knocked on the door and mowed your lawn or, whatever. I had a job, but, and I saw my parents, but my parents weren't entrepreneurs either. So it was kind of one of those, get a job, you work for somebody, you work your tail off, hopefully they take care of you, but you get your means and you do what you can with your means. And so, I'll tell you the really motivating factor of things. And so I started my own business in August of 2015. 2016 went phenomenal. We hired people. It's when I moved down to Puerto Rico. I got to hire people. I'll tell you, that was a big change, hiring people. I call it making payroll. The day you start making payroll is a whole different scenario, because I now know that kids, meals get put on their table because of the paycheck that I sign. And so it is an absolute motivating factor. But 2017, one day I will write a book. 2017 will be the longest chapter. So 2017, my mom dies August 11th, and September 29th, I believe, Hurricane Maria destroys Puerto Rico. I have 3 feet of water inside my own personal house. I have 37 windows in our corporate office that blew out. We had just moved into that office about 5 days before, and the entire island is destroyed. And so I had business partners at the time, and they were gracious in the short term, and we just told employees the island needs us more than making a couple bucks is going to do. Plus, literally, we had no office, and so I started a charity with some friends, and we went to work. And I'll tell you, when you start seeing what other people are going through, you have to look at what you're going through and be like, shut the F up.
Yeah.
Right? Like, yes, I just lost my favorite person in the world. I wasn't 40 and I lost both of my parents. That's not cool. I still, it's a motivating factor every day to make them proud. But when you see a family of 7 who lost their roof, has nowhere to go, the house has no insurance, and they have no money, and they don't know where their next meal is going to come from, that's legit.
Mhm.
And so, for me, it was kind of one of those things at that very moment that it's like, all right, life isn't always about you. And it's also the expression that I learned at that time that you can't read the label from inside the jar. Right. And like, I don't understand still fully whether you believe in God, whether you believe in the universe, whatever you believe in. I'm not sure what that chapter was supposed to do. I'm still not sure. I know it was a motivating factor, but I'll tell you, fast forward a little bit, my business partners and I break up. We had a big disagreement, and we break up, and that cost me lots of money. So in 6 months, I go from my mom dying, a hurricane destroying my island. I have 3 feet of water inside my house. I didn't have power for 4 months. We're starting a charity, trying to help people out. I lose business partners. It cost me 7 figures worth of value, et cetera, et cetera. And you sit there and you're like, I remember January of 2018. I'm like, what do I do? Like, what am I doing? Should I just life when I was 30, this is now 10 years later, right? Life when I was 30, I was the #1 salesperson at my company. I was making a ton of money. I didn't have to worry about any employees. I came to work. I did what I wanted to. I was the golden boy. I was untouchable. I had a great life. What the F am I doing? And, it was right then and there when you start to realize, is that what you want to be known for?
Yeah.
Like, you want to be known for you packed it up because things got hard. And again, of what I just saw, you don't have it that hard. Like, I still had money in the bank. I still had a roof over my head. I still had family and friends that cared about me. So it was one of those things, Colleen, that I hate people's excuses at times that, hey, I was dealt a bad, hand of cards or something, because every red card could be a good red card or a bad red card, right? And it's all about perspective, but it's also about what you do with that, because every failure, as long as you're failing forward, you're making progress. And I really am a firm believer that every time I have fallen or had something, I was supposed to learn something from it. And so I do try to take a pause and be like, all right, that was shitty. I don't like it. What was I supposed to take out of this? And if you do that, you could really try to put things into perspective that the world isn't cruel. The Lord isn't cruel. The universe isn't cruel. This is a lesson. And if you take it that way, you're constantly in learning mode. And constantly in learning mode allows you to be a little bit like the kid who read the Choose Your Own Adventure books. And some of your audience might be too young to remember that. You might be too young to remember that. But when I was reading books, it would be like, turn to page 82 if you want that ending here, but read page 136 if you wanted it here. And so it's kind of how I view life, man. You could take things on the top or the bottom, the heads or the tails, the yin or the yang, but it's going to come with an adventure, and you could choose to take that next step, or you can choose to let it cripple you. I'm just one of those that choose the step rather than the cripple.
Oh, you're giving me chills. It's really like life is on the job training every single day. It's never going to be easy. You are never going to know what you're going to be dealt with next. It's on you to learn how to pivot and take what you can, even though the red card there It's shitty and it's terrible, but there is something, there's a lesson in there, learning from it or just appreciating what you had then. And that some of us don't, you go through every single day, you do to your 9 to 5, you're not really actually enjoying life. So that year taught you, even though there was no pun intended, the hurricane, it was also a hurricane in your own self too, of like,
Right.
everything and anything could go wrong was going wrong, but you had to take a step in a minute and you started to really appreciate everything around you. Your eyes opened up. That's beautiful. But in the moment, were you thinking that, or do you think that now that you have time to look back? Because I know you do coaching, and like
Yeah.
I just got into my own coaching, and like I said, it's rocking my world this month. It's like, whew, some of the stuff is heavy, that, but you're starting to look back and you're like, that's why that happened. That's
Yeah.
why I needed to go through it.
I wish I could tell you that I was so emotionally intelligent that in the moment I was like, oh,
Uh,
thank you for this opportunity to have my mom die. No,
yeah, no.
you know, there are things that get crystal clear. Um, when you look back and think about some things, there's things that you're like, okay, um, you know, I got it.
Mhm.
You don't need to be told again, kind of deal. But I will tell you, fast forward the coaching thing. You get business back on track. I started, break up with business partners, started this business, and I'm a little bit of a contrarian, right? So I'm swimming upstream like a salmon all day long. Everybody says that's the right thing and that's the safe place to go, and I'm telling them, well, that's not necessarily the case. And so, I will tell you, coaching for me has been super profound. And it's interesting because, again, Latin male, grew up in a household of what I would say demonstrated tough love.
Mhm.
I'm getting ready to go out on a Friday night. The only full length mirror was in my parents' room. I'd be in the mirror. My mom's like, "You look like shit today." I'm like, "Awesome, appreciate it, thank you." Just
Keeping
kidding,
you
but
humble. Yeah.
yeah, I mean, but it wasn't like this like lovey dovey. I have friends that be like, yeah, we ate dinner every night around the table. My parents asked me what was the most important thing I did at school today. I'm like, damn, that is so different, rad. I mean, I really do think it's awesome that that happens in a household. It just wasn't ours.
Mhm.
And so that coaching thing for me, it's interesting. One of the first things that happened, and shout out my first business coach, Steve Napolitan. I never used to meditate. Uh, Quite honestly, I thought it was kind of foo-foo, right? Especially men. Like men don't
I was gonna say that,
meditate.
especially manly men.
Yeah,
Yeah.
like men don't meditate. We go to the gym and we pick heavy stuff up and we throw it down on the ground, right? That's your meditation. If you need to get out of your own way, that's what you do. And I remember his wife, like knew instantly. She's like, "You're carrying a lot of stuff." And I was
Mhm.
like, "What are you talking about?" Right? And you look at it, it's like mom died. I went. A friend of mine was getting married. We were in the wedding, so we had that. I mean, literally, like I flew from my mom's funeral to Mexico for a wedding. The first hurricane passed, and then my life gets destroyed. Like I didn't have any time to grieve. And then the hurricane happened, and then business happened, and then as a man, I guess as anybody, but definitely as a man, like I was like, what does grieving mean? Like,
Mhm.
just suck it up, buttercup, and get back to work, get back on that horse. And I didn't really know what that word meant. And it wasn't till I went through coaching that I really understood, like, I was carrying some stuff. And I would have never thought, hey, you know what, once a week you're going to do a meditation that does nothing but think about your mom's death or think about your dad's death. And I'm like, no, because I'm going to cry every single time.
Mhm.
But it's one of those things that until you kind of learn that stuff's okay, And I think the other thing is you start to kind of realize that, you know what? Nobody expects me to be Superman. In fact, people might connect with you a little bit better if you show that level of vulnerability. And so, I would say, even as a leader and as a friend, as a brother, as an uncle, hopefully one day as a boyfriend or a husband, going through some of this is going to allow me, to be a better person. I have, I can't see it on my phone. I have three things that are my goals. One is a financial goal. One is a relationship goal because, I would like that part of my life to be, an important part one day. And one is just an impact of the world. And I look at it, I heard some stat that said you look at your phone like 800 something times throughout the day. So if something's important to you, put it on your phone because you're going to see it all the time. But I got to tell you, that coaching thing to rock your world, like you said, sometimes that perspective from another world, another person, and not always necessarily towards me. So I would say I've now got, multiple business coaches. I learn as much hearing coaches coach other people as I do when it's myself, because now I can take myself and put myself outside. He's not talking to me. And then you're like, oh shit, I do that too.
Yeah.
Or I'm thinking like that too.
It's
And
humbling.
It is super. And look, I'm an arrogant guy, right? Like I don't lack in any self-esteem, but there are some things when you look at things, and I think it allows you to be super comfortable in your own skin. Like I am not perfect, but damn, I'm working every day at being a better person. And that just that statement, I say that out loud, and like 5 years ago, I would have thought that that's the cheesiest thing ever. You're working on being a better person. No, I legit, like every day I wake up, I meditate. My alarm clock says, wake up. What are you grateful for today? Because if you could start the day in a state of gratitude, you can't be grateful and pissed at the same time. You can't be grateful and anxious. You can't be grateful and sad. But if you can focus on, and so I say the thing that comes to mind that I'm grateful for, and then I learned this. I listen to a lot of podcasts. So Brendan Bouchard says, when you need some motivation, ask yourself who needs you to show up today. And sometimes it's my mom. Sometimes it's like, you know what? I want my parents to high five in heaven right now and be like, nailed it. That's our boy. Or it's, hey, I'm going to go tell my, 10-year-old niece about this story that I wasn't feeling like doing something and I did it and I killed it. And you know what? There's going to be times where you're not going to feel like things. And like that impact, which my company's named Next Impact for a reason. Like, I just feel that we're put on this earth to provide an impact, and you're doing it every day, whether you know it or not. So one, know it, and two, be super intentional about it. And if you focus that attention on the impact that you can and are trying to create, the rest of it's going to work out. I truly believe if you worry about the outcome and the impact, the money will come, the happiness will come, all of that will come. Don't focus on the money. Don't chase the dollar, chase the impact, chase the motivation, the passion, the why, and the money and everything will follow.
Oh, you're just speaking everything. You need to be your own coach right now. Because it's, everything you were just saying about meditation, that's one thing in the coaching. She was like, Kyle, what do? You're working, you're hustling, you're on sales, you got the podcast, you're running around, you're working out with heavy weights. But when was the last time you meditated? When's the last time you danced? When was the last time you touched into your feminine side? And you were like, don't call me out like that. But it's the same way with the man too. Like if we're doing all this hard stuff, if you're not touching in to yourself, it's our whole, our person inside of us is who we need to take care of. If we're acting like we're cold, I heard you talk about on other podcasts when I was doing, some research on you before you came on the show, talking about, you were always like on stage, the male or like in business. And then until you started really telling your story and letting people in onto your heart and the personal side of things, that opened up doors for you completely afterwards, right? So it's really like, it doesn't have to be this whole masculine feminine thing. Meditation could be something just slowing down the mind, resetting the day. It's something interesting. You got to tell yourself to kind of shut up sometimes when your mind's going in different places. That's probably the hardest thing for me right now, is learning how to quiet down the mind. But coaching for sure is a beautiful, beautiful thing that I think so many people, that therapy is the past, coaching is really the future. So, I mean, talking about the past,
No,
coaching is really focusing on the future.
I agree. And you know what, for those of you that say, you know what, I can't afford it. I mean, we're blessed, obviously, Colleen, that we have a couple extra bucks to pay for it. But you know, that thing called YouTube, you know,
Mm-hmm.
that's free. And the app that I use to meditate is free. And so I agree. I got to tell you, I think I have come up with several, you know, hopefully $1 million ideas while
For the
laying there
book.
meditating, right? So
Mm-hmm.
like, I think that's slowing down the mind. It's kind of the same thing if you think about it as the great ideas you come up with in the shower, right?
Yes.
Because it's like your peaceful time. No, when you don't have kids yelling at you, you don't have the phone ringing, you're in there, you're just in yourself. And that reality of that meditation time is a time to slow down. And I still have to do a guided. I've been doing it heavily for 2 years. I think I'm on like day 160 something in a row. And so I'm talking, you know, there are days where I've had one too many margaritas than that, and it's the first thing I'm gonna do. And I do it for different reasons. There's some days that I'm like, I got a big day, like I gotta get, you know, I gotta be on a good focus day. So I'm gonna look for a subject around focus. There are days that I wake up and I'm already know I'm an asshole. I feel it. I
You
woke
feel
up,
it. Yeah.
I'm grumpy. I'm like, gratitude. Like anytime I'm gonna be a grump, it's a gratitude day. And here's the cool part about it. My team, whether they like it or not, they get subject to all my coaching. They get subject to all my podcasts. So like sometimes our thing will be, hey, and I get up at 4:30 every day. So they might get an inbox in the email in their inbox or a Slack message that's like at 5:15, hey, our 10 o'clock team meeting, I want everybody to have already listened to this. And we're going to talk about it. And, you know, I've got team members that are like, you know what, I never realized that. I never thought about something. You know, don't tell me you don't have enough time to work out. Schedule it. You have it scheduled?
Mm-hmm.
Did you block off time for you to eat a healthy lunch? You know, these are things that are important. I don't want this business. I don't want to have an impact so that we can monetarily benefit. I want this impact because I want you to look back and say that my time with that guy benefited my entire life. I want to know your kids. I want them to be better. I want them to be like, my dad is so much better because of the job. Because when that kid starts to be, you know, time to work, they're going to look at it and be like, I need to be in a job, or I need to provide the job that I'm impacting other people's lives. So, you know, I really do. And it might be cheesy. It might sound big. It might sound whatever, but like, I have, you know, my HR guy and we just have this bond. And he worked 20 years at Walmart in HR. And so he's just brilliant. And, you know, I will always push him like, hey, no, this is about this. This is about this. And, you know, he's like, his wife has sent me text messages like, hey, thank you. You know, my husband's such a better man because he's working for you.
Oh.
And it's like, you get a text, I would run through that wall. That is a better call for me than we just won $1 million deal.
Yeah.
Like hands down. Like, so, you know, again, I think, you know, we started this with a conversation about the why. And, you know, I do say that there's a motivating factor that, you know, I've got two people smiling down from heaven. But that word impact for me is probably, you know, what that has translated into my why. I really do. Like, I want you to like hang up from this podcast and be like, that guy's cool. Like that, you know, and I want your listeners to say the same thing. And I'll get done with this and I'm exhausted, right? Cause I'm on cloud nine right now having this conversation, but like, I just look at that and everything you do, show up. Like, why do something half grass if that's the only thing that you can control? You can't control that it's wet and raining outside. You can't control the pandemic. You can't control the smelly subway that we talked about earlier. You can't control any of that. You can control how you show up. And, when's the last time you were around somebody that showed up like that and then you left still in a bad mood? And so that's what I always think about. Like when somebody does that for me, I leave and I'm charged and I'm like, I want to be around that person more. So I think about that when I'm, around, is like, I want people to like, think about that when I'm around. Like I left and I'm in a better mood, or I have more energy, or man, that guy's pretty cool. Or, again, we might not agree on everything. You might be green, I might be blue. And if you might be Puerto Rican, we might be this, you might male and female, whatever it is. But that the way you show up, for me, it's everything.
It's almost like being a kid again, allowing yourself to have fun in every sense and be playful, because you're very energized, you're very enthusiastic all the time. Every time I see you, you're that way. So I don't see you're exhausted. We all are exhausted. We all don't want to get up some days. There's some days where I just don't want to do the stuff I have to do for the rest of the day. And then you got to put some music on. You have to just do it and push through it. Back in the hairstyle days, I used to dance with the damn broom. I was literally sweeping the floors, cleaning out the sinks back when I was 15 years old, but I was doing it with a broom and got the biggest tips, because it's the people, like you say, that bring the impact into the world, that just to have fun. You're the light for somebody else on a bad day. That's the way you got to look at it.
I really, and again, maybe your audience is more New Yorkers, but I think about that in New York. Like I'm a Southern boy, so I'm Puerto Rican. I say y'all, but
Is that a thing?
The thing is Florida. I think it's the Florida thing. But like I'm a please and thank you. One of my best, favorite things in Puerto Rico, there's a term, buen provecho, which is like bon appetit, like have a nice meal. And I always think about that because, you will get some New Yorkers that moved out and like you'll be eating breakfast by yourself and 900 people will walk by, buen provecho. And like, it's part of the thing. It's like, I always think about that because I'm always like, good morning. And literally when we used to go into the office, my first thing I do when I walk in the office, or because I'm usually there before everybody, when everybody's here, I go around and I high five everybody. And I remember hiring people and they're like, they've read an article about me or they've seen something. So they think like, hey, this guy might be, and I'm so far from the least stuffy. Like I'll hold my town hall meeting standing on the chair, because that's just me. Like I just want people to be impacted. And so that New Yorker mentality and the hustle and the grind is so fantastic because that energy, pre-COVID, I guess, was just naturally ingrained in that city. But that like how you impact the other person. So like you can be in the grind, but like there's other people dealing with stuff. And like you never know what that smile, what that opening of the door, what Colleen, your hair looks great today.
Thank you. I know. Yeah.
That you never know what that's gonna do to somebody. And you hear like I think it was like Dean Graziosi, it's another podcast I listen to all the time. He was saying that he was checking out at a grocery store and he's like he always asked the clerk like, what was the best thing that you had today? And that he came back, asked that person, they had a conversation. Well, I hope you have a great day because you've made my day great, blah, blah, blah. Came back a couple of weeks later and the lady had slipped him a note and basically said, that day I was contemplating suicide and, you changed my outlook. And it's like, damn, you never know what somebody else is going through. And like, that way you show up is exactly that. So, we talk about the conversation about, is somebody going to work and they hate their job? Well, then, do something on the side as a side hustle.
Yeah.
Right. Like, it's funny. I have like friends and things that are like, Miraz, I don't know how you get so much done. Well, I don't scroll through Instagram for 4 hours. I don't watch Netflix. I do stuff. So you think about like, if you worked a 9 to 5, yeah, you got some family time stuff and you got to sleep, 7, 8 hours, but there's a lot of 2, 3, 4 hours a day that if you really wanted to do something, you could. And so I do say that, man, I sometimes think I was crazy to leave a steady, big paycheck at times. But man, I look back and I am infinitely grateful that I took that leap. So if anybody's listening that is kind of on that, start it with a side hustle. Don't worry about the money. Don't worry about the success. Just do something you're passionate about and that you are better than other people at. Because if 2 or 3 people get enjoyment out of it, you impacted 2 or 3 people's lives who they live in a household or encounter people that they probably impacted 2 or 3. And you never know what that ripple effect
Absolutely.
that has. And so I really do believe in that. And it's cheesy as all get out at times when you really think about that one little thing could be the downstream of that. But man, especially in a city like New York, impacting one and so many people in one spot probably goes infinitely further.
Yeah. And it's always, Ed Milet the other day was saying, you got to think of something and you have to think of what you want it to be. And then you have to think even bigger because what you're thinking is not even to the extent of your capacity that you're actually capable of. And I was like, that is powerful. So you and I can literally talk all day long about this topic completely. I want to talk about Next Impact quickly so that we can all know what the hell you're doing, changing the world, because health insurance, we all know, is interesting to say the least. And for folks that aren't really in the industry, I don't want to go too, granular here, but just a little bit tell us about what Next Impact does for the world and how you're trying to change it.
Yeah. So, healthcare is screwed up, right? I mean, plain
To
and
say the
simple.
least.
It's $1 trillion number, and it's full of misaligned incentives. So, just questions to lay it out. Does a health insurance company have any incentive to actually lower premium? What we call premium, they call revenue.
Mhm.
Right? The reality of it is that's a misaligned incentive. Does a doc make more money the more times they see you or the healthier they make you?
Right.
Does a hospital make any money when you're not laying in their bed? Does a pharmaceutical company make any money when they're not dispensing pills? You look at all that, and the industry's unfortunately constructed in such a way that it is riddled with misalignment. And knowing that on top of the cost of healthcare services, let's just take an MRI. In the city of Manhattan, in a 5-block radius, you could pay $3,000 for an MRI. You could pay $600 for an MRI. But who tells you? Who knows?
No one.
The cost of a knee surgery would range from $60,000 to $22,000 in Manhattan. That surgeon has way better results of that surgery. That hospital does a better job than that hospital, but nobody ever tells you. So the concept of what we do is we help employers and their advisors. So every company has an insurance advisor. We help them design health plans that actually take that knowledge of understanding that the cost, 3,000 versus 600, and the quality, that person versus that person, that hospital for that hospital, changes depending on where you go. And we make those and use those data points in every other purchasing decision that we use. When you buy a car, did you research the car? Damn right you researched the car. You looked at that versus that versus that. You looked at that dealership versus that dealership. You'd actually be willing to drive 3 hours in any direction to save $5,000. But when's the last time you asked a question about the healthcare services that you're getting rendered? And so our whole premise is if we slow down for the 80% of healthcare costs that are pre-planned, non-emergency, pre-planned. I am having that surgery. I am having that MRI. I am going to that doctor. If we just slow down and provide a level of concierge, a level of advocacy for patients, for employees, for members, they will have the opportunity to make better decisions. When they make better decisions, healthcare costs are lowered and we get them to the highest quality place. So that's what we do. We build health plans that supply that level of information, that level of advocacy, so that healthcare can be better and cheaper. And it just takes what you and I have been talking about all day long, a different mindset. We would
Exactly.
never, never, never in our life take the car to the first auto mechanic shop after a fender bender without calling State Farm or, whatever. But every day we don't even ask questions about healthcare, and we do whatever the doc said, whatever the lady at the lunchroom table said to go to the cardiologist because she had a great experience at this cardiologist. I have no idea. We took some lady at the table's suggestion, Nancy from accounting, and
Nancy
we
from
didn't ask a question.
accounting.
And so, Karen, so that's the notion of what we do. So it is a little bit of a contrarian scenario because it's not the way our industry has functioned. And so, but it's huge impact. Most of the time, our clients are giving away healthcare free to their employees when the employees participate. So, hey, if you go and you're okay going to get that MRI where it's $600, it's free for you. So it goes back to, again, no family will have to file bankruptcy under the plans that I'm designing because there will be no out-of-pocket expense, and we will be focused on getting them to the highest quality healthcare. So that's the purpose.
That's the impact behind everything, like we've been talking about this entire time. And my favorite is your end of the week on LinkedIn when you're telling the story about who you helped or what went on that week. And I like how you tie in the employees. Lester's just all around a good person. You just are. At the end of the day, when you're tying in everybody and the employees have the impact and the employees are helping out and you're telling stories about them and the people you're helping, all in all, the future is bright for you, my friend. It is.
I
I
appreciate it.
appreciate.
It's not an easy, I'll tell you, it has not been an easy road. I was flying here to Dallas and saw some, I was scrolling on Facebook and they showed the America's Got Talent or whatever auditions, and some kid wrote this song about his mom and he sings it. And I am bawling. When I tell you bawling, I am like bloody murder on the plane. The lady next to me looks at me and she's like, "Are you okay?" I'm like, yeah, this kid's got an amazing song. Like, it doesn't even bother me anymore. Like, it has not been an easy road. It has not been, quite honestly, financially, I was making more money back in the day. Now I have a business and it's worth something and, whatever. But like, as far as like W-2 paycheck, what goes in my wallet every week is not as high as it used to be. But the level of impact, and like when I look at myself at the end of the day to wash my face before I go to bed, I can tell you I'm infinitely happier with the person I look at in the mirror because I can go to bed knowing that, I've got employees I'm impacting, I've got clients I'm impacting. I try to do these podcasts and things so that hopefully a couple ears got impacted. And so it's definitely not the easier road to take, Colleen, but if there's one thing I think we do have in common is that easy road isn't as fulfilling. And so, why take an easy road that's not fulfilling as opposed to that rocky road that you get to smile at yourself at the end of the day?
That was a beautiful way to wrap this up. That was incredible because exactly what you just said. At the end of the day, when we're impacting one person, that counts over the green any single day. As long as you could pay your bills, who needs the shiny stuff? Do we all want that? Yeah, but you don't really need the 19 cars. You need one car to go to work. And if you
We
can
got
buy
one
one
car.
car and you have a roof over your head and you're helping put a roof over other people's heads, I mean, you're changing the world as is, and that's all we can do. Life is not going to be easy. It's probably not going to, it's going to get harder as you find more success. But with your mindset, that's what it comes down to. You're able to take on and tackle those things as they come to us in the future. You and I, like I said, can talk all day long, but we are going to wrap this up so everybody else can get back to their day. Where can everybody check you out? Should they follow you on LinkedIn? Do you have a social page? Where can they
Yeah,
check you?
no, LinkedIn's probably the best. And then THB.health, transparenthealthbenefits.health is the brand we created. There's things that go on there about what we do, but socially and personally, LinkedIn's the best. And it's Lester J. Morales, because fun fact, my brother and I have the same name. So you got to get that more handsome Lester Morales, not the lesser handsome one. So hopefully he
I'll talk to you. Well, we're going to wrap this up and we're going to be back next week with another solo episode of just you and I talking, not Lester and I, you and me, meaning the listeners. Lester's leaving the building now. But thanks, Lester, for being here. I appreciate you coming on. It's been fun.
Yes, ma'am. I appreciate you guys.
Future is now.